This is 24/7 World Radio.
Guys, continuing on now with Brother George Widger. And Brother George, welcome to the broadcast.
Well, thank you. As always, Brother Eric, it's a pleasure to be all with you.
Mm-hmm. And so, what would you like to talk about today, my brother, for myself and also for the listeners? Because I always learn something from you. So.
Oh, well, verse 8 or verse 6.
Okay, give that again. You were kind of cut out there. What do you want to read?
Sorry, I think, yes, it's Hosea 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because, page, or turn the page rather, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt not be that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing that thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, and I will forget thy children. Okay, there are several applications here. One of which I would like to address is a temporal one, and of course, there's obviously a spiritual one. And I'm not going to belabor the spiritual application. Well, partially, I hope what we've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years could possibly rectify the situation and will address and redress the situation. I haven't been flapping my gums for since 2019 with you, just simply to share trivia.
That's right. You have put on the flesh of the skeleton that I provide. So you just fill in more and more details that further validates these conclusions that we make here, especially in Vatican Assassins. But go ahead.
Okay, so a case in point, there's all sorts of distractions in our world, and there have been, for decades. But let's just simply talk about the 21st century. There always seems to be some sort of agitation, in the United States, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, whatever. And recently, I guess the United States allegedly shot down a balloon over the U.S. And this is not original with me. Of course, every circus and every clown show needs balloons.
Well, no doubt, because I'm utterly convinced that the CIA was behind it. And of course, the government of China and the government of the American Empire worked together under the papacy. So China's saying that was our balloon, but it was just passed over. And I say it was never China's balloon. It was a balloon of the NASA or some intelligence op here to further agitate against China. So they're preparing for war. Go ahead.
Okay, well, yes, and of course, over the weekend, I guess the United States shot some objects, objects over Canada, and it's just more nonsense, more distraction. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could say something more creative or original than that, but it's just like.
Well, George, if the listeners would remember the history that we've taught them for the last several years, they would know that this is merely another op of the Pope's international intelligence community run by the Jesuits. For what end? To incite us to war or to something along those lines.
Okay, so as I said, the United States Air Force was supposed to have shot some aircraft over UFOs or unidentified flying objects over Canada. So let's just see now. So you have the Emperor of the United States, Joe Biden, who was trained by the Jesuits, was controlled by the Jesuits. One of his advisors was Leo J. Donovan. And then you have the Emperor of
And who
Canada.
was he? Who was Leo J. Donovan?
Boy, how many hours do you have to spare?
Just a comment, okay? Just a comment.
I mean, he's a priest, a Jesuit. Among other things, he ran Disney for well over a decade. Yes, he was on the board of directors of Disney, i.e., he ran Disney. He gave Joe Biden's inaugural address.
And he had been in the past president of Georgetown University, which is really the capital of the United States.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Also, he did the funeral for not Hunter Biden, Beau Biden.
I see.
Yes, Hunter is not dead yet. I mean, well, physically pretty much is there, but and spiritually. But yes, so and of course, Justin Castro Trudeau, who's the Emperor of Canada.
That's right.
So
That's right. Emperor of Canada and Emperor of the United States, both Jesuit trained, both overseen by Jesuits, and both destroying every vestige of every liberty born out of the Protestant, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Reformation. Yep, go ahead.
So it is a quick question. Why was the United States Air Force involved with these? Shouldn't that have been under the purview of the Canadian Royal Air Force?
I would think so. But I'd venture to say that there's some sort of a secret agreement because, after all, the Canadians in the 1950s developed the most high-tech fighter that had ever been developed, called the Avro Arrow, and it was, flew in excess of 100,000 feet. It had engines that were more thrust than 30,000 pounds. They were the Iroquois engines. I mean, it was a great airplane, and it put to shame every other airplane. So the Jesuits had that killed by Allen Dulles and Diffenberger, who was the prime minister at the time, and just reduced Canada to being subordinate to the United States. Go ahead.
Well, move along. Nothing to see here. Go back to, just talk about the Super Bowl or whatever it is. Speaking of which, we had yesterday in the United States in Phoenix, we had the pinnacle of American bread and circuses, the Super Bowl. The two teams, I guess, were the Kansas City Chiefs, who just won it a few years ago, and the Philadelphia Eagles. And in Philly, you have St. Joseph's University, and in KC, Kansas City, you have Rockhurst.
Now, what's the name of it?
Rockhurst.
Oh, Rockhurst.
You have Rockhurst University, and you have Rockhurst High School.
Which is a Jesuit university, correct?
Correct.
Rockhurst in Kansas City. So you got Rockhurst in Kansas City, Jesuit, and you got St. Joseph's University, Jesuit in Philadelphia. Yes. And those are their two teams.
Well, okay, so I understand.
One more thing. Who is the favored team in this? I don't know.
Well, I believe the Chiefs won.
They won, but who was the favorite team going into it?
I guess the Chiefs. I mean, whomever the Jesuits wanted to win. But speaking of even though the Eagles lost, their general manager is a fellow by the name of John Roseman, who is of a German Jewish background, but he got his law degree from Fordham.
Yep, that guy's law degree at Fordham. Very good. So you got the Jesuits everywhere.
Yes. Yep. And well, I mean, I realize, you had to go if you're a Jewish young man, is intelligent, industrious, you had to go to law school somewhere.
Correct. And why not pick the best? So they have the money, they go to the best, and then when they get done, they're busy serving the Jesuit order wherever they go. So that's Satan using the most intelligent peoples in the world for his purposes in serving his papacy. Go ahead.
Now, by the way, I realize this happened 6 weeks ago, on January the 2nd, so this is a little out of date. But remember the whole PSYOP, psychological operation, with DeVar Hamlin, who played for the Buffalo Bills at a game in Cincinnati, and he purportedly had a heart attack at the age of 24.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and he made a miraculous recovery, and he was just, bouncing around like the Energize or Bunny Rabbit in a few days. Well, he actually got his reported treatment at University of Cincinnati Medical Center, which is right in Ohio. So I'm just curious about that. So they had to take him. Okay, whether he had a heart attack, I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation altogether. But I was curious as to who actually runs University of Cincinnati Medical Center. So these are the people, just some of the people who are on the board of directors of that institution. So you have the senior vice president and chief information officer, Jay Brown. He got his MBA from Xavier University in Cincinnati, which is run by the Jesuits. You also have...
You got Jay Brown, he's Xavier grad.
Correct. He's the senior vice president. And he's
senior VP.
And the chief information officer for University of Cincinnati. You also have Katrina English, who is a chief legal counsel for University of Cincinnati Medical Center. She's also works as chief legal counsel for Mercy Health Systems Ohio, which is Catholic. You have Kristen Wivers, I believe.
Where did Katrina go to school?
Well, she got her. Sorry, I did look that. I only look up the information if it's Catholic. I can look that. I can get that to you if you like, but her education is ostensibly secular.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I'm looking up something else here. You also have Kristen Wevers, who's the chief marketing and communications officer. She got her master's degree also from Xavier.
Christina Webers, is what you said?
Wevers, Webers, Beavers, or however you pronounce it. Then you have like the chief medical officer, Chad Zender, Dr. Chad Zender, who did his residency at Loyola Chicago.
Zender. I see. So we got the Jesuits there. They're with the Loyola University in Chicago.
Correct.
So it looks like the Jesuits are pretty well represented by their graduates at the University of Cincinnati Hospital.
Correct.
Correct.
So
Okay.
this is this injured player, or this allegedly injured player, DeMar Hamlin, was taken to receive medical treatment. He was released within a few days and is back playing again. So you had to wonder, did he actually even have a heart attack?
Well, I don't know. It looks to me like it was faked, but who knows? Just more agitation of the irrelevant, because, I Bible believing Christian people, we should not be focused on childish things. In fact, I just preached on that previous hour. When we became a man, we put away childish things. Well, running up and down a field with a pointed ball, seeing who can be tackled or who can catch the ball, is really childish things. Or hitting a baseball. I never forget, there was a Mennonite couple that were helping me as I was writing my book, and one of my customers in concrete work, gave me 4 tickets to a baseball game in Harrisburg. I forget the Harrisburg Rangers or whatever they're called. And I said, well, I don't really want to go with this. And I asked him, would you want to take your children? He said, Eric, we don't do those things. She said, those are childish things. That's the first time I ever heard anybody say these sports were childish. And she was right. So I just took the tickets and threw them away. But all this professional sports is childishness. And you know who came to this realization also later on in his life? The Black Bill Russell. And he even says something like this on the special about him on Netflix towards the end of the documentary. But yeah, this is all childishness. It's ridiculous. You talk about here we are, grown men running around half naked on a court. So this is all our preoccupations while the Jesuits are busy destroying our historic white Anglo-Saxon Protestant liberty and race and heritage and history and culture, and morphing everything into the Counter-Reformation New World Order. Yep. Okay, brother. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate your insights. So anyhow, so I guess the Chiefs won yesterday. So congratulations. I mean,
well, that brings up another topic. I had a black student in my class in Houston many years ago. He was very articulate, very well spoken, very well groomed, and he wore a derby. A black man wearing a derby hat. I thought that was intriguing. It says something to me about his personality. And we were sitting at the lunch table there together. And he said, issue of the Super Bowl came up, and he said, well, Eric, he said, you got to know that they're all rigged. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah, I know for a fact. He's the one responsible for assembling all the different chairs and everything in the huge Coliseum or whatever they have. And he explained to me that it's all rigged. So I have no doubt that these big games are rigged, that the underdog, when it wins, the mafia is making all kinds of money. It's This is a Jesuit reduction where the people, the childish people, the Guarani Indians, are entertained with entertainments and sports and bettings and games, while the Jesuits are running the reduction for their super wealth and power, just like it's being done here.
Okay. Well, I mean, people have been saying this for a long time. There's a book that came out called, last decade or so, called "The Fix Is In." I don't know who the author is, but he's been saying this. This has been going the case. This has been the case for decades, at least in professional sports in the United States, and probably on the collegiate level in terms of, say, championship games. I'll have to go look into that. But
that's why Barry Sanders left professional football. He could have been the greatest running back in history, but when they decided not to properly run him, he quit. He didn't say that, but it's obvious because they wanted it fixed. They did not want him to excel any more than what he had. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so something you had asked just before we came on was you said over the weekend you saw the 1976 comedy Network.
It was really no comedy, brother. It was very serious. But
okay, well, it was billed as the ending was, although graphic, it was somewhat comedic. So
yes, it was. Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to is the film came out in 1976. It was shot the previous year, 1975. So the statistics they mentioned were for the previous year, 1974. So I need to point that out for a second because one of the main characters in the film, Harold Bill, played by Peter Finch, who actually died shortly after the film was released. As a matter of fact, he received a posthumous Academy Award for it.
He's the one that was saying, I want you to go out to your windows and say, I'm mad as hell. That's the guy. What's his name?
Peter Finch.
Peter Finch. Okay.
Okay, so it's interesting. Now, what do you think of his character? I mean, despite his language.
Well, I like the character. He was telling the truth. And when he came out and he talked about how Saudi Arabia has all this power and all the money that they're investing here. And immediately I'm thinking, well, of course they are, because you see the Jesuits using their Rockefeller Seven Sisters shut down all the oil production in this country, essentially, to facilitate the production in Saudi Arabia, so that American people would have to buy their oil and their products, taking our money out of the country, enriching them so they could turn around and have all these foreign land sales and buy up a whole bunch of stuff here, rather than we having our own oil wells and we have our own production and we keep it inside the country. Oh no, that would be nationalism. So we're going to expend it all the way in Saudi Arabia to build the second Sunni caliphate while busy destroying ourselves. And so it made perfect sense to me when he talks about that. When he said that, that's when everything turned against him. And that guy that was in charge of everything interviewed him in his great big office with a huge long Chittendale table. Go ahead.
Okay, so you're talking about two different characters: Howard Bill, played by Peter Finch, and Ned Beatty's character, Arthur Jensen. Now, what do you think of Ned Beatty's character? He only had one scene in the movie.
Now, how do you spell Ned Beatty? B-A-D-Y?
Okay. Sorry. N-E-D. Now, you probably know, you might not know the name, but he was in all dozens, scores of things on television films. He was in the Deliverance.
Well, he was in Shooter. He was the bad guy in Shooter, where Mark Wahlberg is the shooter and he's set up to be killed and they didn't kill him. And then ultimately the senator that was behind all this, that's the same guy, Ned Beatty.
Yes. So spelled N-E-D space B-E-A-T-T, Ned Beatty. He played Arthur Jensen, he's sort of the shadowy figure who runs this network. He has he talks, Beatty's character talks to Finch's character, and he said, Mr. Bill, there are no countries. There is no United States. There's only corporations.
It was a perfect Jesuit speech. And these guys are Jesuit code users. They're some of the Jesuits' favorite actors. Just like Al Pacino made his speech in The Devil's Advocate towards the end. Another classic Jesuit speech. So this was a Jesuit speech given by this guy. And again, tell us what he said.
Okay, so he basically, I'm paraphrasing, he said there are no nations. There's only corporations. There is no United States. There is no USSR, Russia. And he said the people who are running Russia, basically the same people who are running the United States are the same people running Russia. The people
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And of course, those people were the Jesuits. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So, well, they had to give us some truth, but not the whole truth.
Oh, but they never take it home to the Jesuit order. That would be forbidden.
Okay, but one of the things that Bill talks about, Howard Bill's character talks about in the film, is, gee, you have all these people who are being agitated, who are being upset about something, about inflation, about Russia, or whatever. Now, you remember, in terms of comedic elements, there's like this black terrorist group called, was it the People's Liberation Ecumenical Movement?
Yeah,
really?
Something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they had this.
It was like the Symbionese Liberation Army. You got the black leader, then you got the white woman serving the black leader, like Patty Hearst was the white woman serving the black leader in the Symbionese Liberation Army. So, yeah, it's an agitation controlled by the Jesuits. Yeah. And they would be used to shoot Peter Finch's character, Howard Beale.
Okay,
just like the Panthers are used by them, just like the Nation of Islam used by them. I mean, it makes just perfect sense.
But as I said, I forgot the name of the black lady, but she was completely over the top. She was like an Angela Davis type character.
Right, kind of like Angela Davis, a mulatto. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so anyhow, all right, we're talking about, we make all these accusations and innuendos. You know, the Jesuits were behind the movie. Well, where are the receipts? Well, actually, maybe I could provide some of them. The screenplay was written by Patty Chachefsky. But actually,
Patty Chachefsky.
Yes, whose birth name was Simon Chachefsky.
Mm-hmm.
And okay. Now he
sounds like she's Jewish. Is she Jewish? I guess.
Yes, he was.
He was. So he is a Jew, busy working for the order and writing this. And by the way, in that movie is some of the most erudite high English I have ever heard. Some of the words I had to go look up.
Such as?
In this movie of Network, there's some of the greatest, most advanced English language use rhetoric that I've ever heard in any movie. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Sidney Aaron Patty Chachefsky. Patty was just simply a nickname. He was of a Polish Jewish background, grew up in New York City, lived the 29th of January, 1923, died on August 1st, 1981. So he was 58 when he died. Now, he served in Army intelligence during World War II. However, he spent his entire time stateside, and the U.S. Army sent him to Fordham to study foreign languages.
Sent him to Fordham. So here we are. Sidney Chachefsky, Jesuit trained at Fordham.
Correct. And he wrote the screenplay for the film. Now,
that shows all the brilliance right there. The Jesuits had to be a part of that screenplay. Yep. And by the way, the Jesuits used a couple of their key actors. They used Robert Duvall, that Italian Roman Catholic, most devoted to the order, and they also used the leading guy there. What was his name? William Holden.
Yes.
Most notorious Jesuit coach. And who's the woman? Who's that? Faye Dunaway, you said?
Faye Dunaway, yeah. Yes.
Faye Dunaway. What an erudite, well-spoken woman is that? I mean, she had, of course, a filthy mouth, but high rhetoric. that she uses here. So those are all Jesuit coadjutors. They used some very high actors in this movie. It wasn't a joke to them. I believe they were telling exactly what they do here in the context of Hamlet. As Edward de Vere wrote in Hamlet, all the plays are a brief and abstract chronicle of the times. So it's an abstract truth they're portraying here.
Now, for what it's worth, the director of the film was Sidney Lumet. He was actually of a Jewish French background. He lived from the 25th of June, 1924, died on April the 9th, 2011. Now, he was married 4 times. One of his wives was Gloria Vanderbilt, who...
the concubine for Joe Kennedy?
Well, among other things, and yes, she was a dame hospitaller.
Yeah, Gloria. Well, she's the mother of Anderson Cooper, isn't she?
Correct.
Okay. Gloria Vanderbilt, she's a Dame of Malta.
Yes.
And I would wonder if Sidney was a knight also, because there are Jewish knights of Malta like Henry Kissinger.
Yes. So, and by the way, Henry is almost 100. Wow, he's. I wonder how much baby blood he's had to consume.
I wonder. Yeah, the wicked sinner. Yeah, so you have these people involved in the making of this movie. One of them was trained at George Fordham, and one was married to Gloria Vanderbilt, who was a Dame of Malta. So we see the Knights connection all through this network movie.
Okay.
Network of 1976, dear listener. Go ahead.
Okay, so is billed as a comedy because Howard Beale's character was considered completely over the top and somewhat unrealistic, but his character told the truth. Now, as I said, this is back in the mid-1970s, so you're almost talking half a century ago.
And he was called what, the Mad Prophet?
Yes.
Yeah, the Mad Prophet. Yeah,
so.
Okay, George, I'm having fun with this. So, listeners, we'll be back in a moment with Brother George Widger as we further evaluate the movie network and any other topic he wants to cover. So, showing how the Jesuits are busy running the press and entertainment, and at times telling us exactly what they're doing. Back in a moment. 24/7 World Radio.
This is the Eric John Phelps Show on 24/7 World Radio.
This is Brother Nicholas. Join me every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the German Bible Truth Hour and at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Dutch Bible Truth Hour on 24/7 World Radio. This is Bruder Nicholas. Ich lade euch herzlich ein, mich anzuhören jeder Dienstag am 2 Uhr nachmittags, amerikanische Zeit, für die deutsche Bibelwahrheitsstunde und 3 Uhr amerikanische Standardzeit für die niederländische Bibelwahrheitsstunde am World Radio 24/7. Dit is broeder Nico. U bent hartelijk uitgenodigd om elke dinsdag om 2 uur Amerikaanse standaardtijd het Duitse Bijbelwaarheidsuur te volgen en 3 uur Amerikaanse standaardtijd het Nederlandse Bijbelwaarheidsuur te volgen op 24/7 World Radio.
This is 24/7 World Radio, and you're listening to The Eric John Phelps Show.
George Widger, as we are evaluating and speaking of this movie of 1976 titled Network, which I regard as a classic. It's exactly what the Jesuits are doing, at least we're doing then. And the assassination of Howard Beale at the end of the program is just like Malcolm X was assassinated. He was shot down at a public speaking place 10 years before this movie was made. So, okay, George, go ahead.
Okay, a couple of things. I'd just like to talk about Howard Beale's character, who is the main protagonist of the film. And in terms of some of the things he says, he mentioned that, did you know, when talking to his audience, that last year, 1974, that, as I said, the movie came out in 76, so it was shot in 75. So the statistics he mentioned were from 1974. So did you know that last year, only 3% of Americans read a book of any kind?
Oh, when he said that, I about fell out of my chair. Finally, somebody said it. A lady said that to me years ago. She said, Eric, this generation has no favorite author.
Okay.
They have no favorite author, so they don't read any books. I said, go ahead.
Okay, so granted, you're talking almost 50 years ago. And he said only, not sure if this would mean anything, only 15% of Americans read a newspaper. Not saying that mean anything, but at least it's easier to discern the propaganda and the whole nonsense that you're reading. Whereas Bill is saying for a whole generation, i.e. for the previous 20, 25 years, this little box, this little tube has dictated our reality.
That's right.
So, and of course,
Richard Nixon said, if it's not on the TV, the people won't believe it.
Okay, and more to the point, he says, we're under no obligation to tell you the truth. We don't. And he
That's
said,
right. And you know why? Because the people are deemed enemies and belligerents, living in states deemed occupied territories since March 9th, 1933. So the government of Washington, D.C., of Commander-in-Chief, is waging war on all the quote-unquote U.S. citizens, enemy belligerents within the states now deemed conquered territories. And one of the laws of war is you don't owe the enemy the truth.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he makes a couple of dated cultural references, and I might need to inform the audience. He refers to a couple of popular TV shows at the time. There was a crime drama called Kojak, starring Telly Savalas, and Archie Bunker, starring Carol O'Connor. Now, one of the things he says, Kojak always catches the killer by the end of the episode. Nobody gets cancer at Archie Bunker's house. So
now that wasn't true. At least they made that, and then later on, I guess there was a sequel on All in the Family where Edith got breast cancer.
Oh, okay, so all right, so all right, so they can tell you he didn't say this, but near the end of the movie where they're plotting the murder of Howard Beale, Robert Duvall and or his character and his henchman and Faye Dunaway, does that remind you anything of the Lincoln? I'm sorry, not well. Yeah, I suppose I say Lincoln, but you mentioned now Malcolm X. But what about the Jack Kennedy?
No doubt, of course. Here's Jack Kennedy, and he's talking about ending the empire. He says America was not to impose a Pax Americana with weapons of war. I mean, he was talking about ending the empire. And so we just got to get rid of him. Well, we put him in office. Yeah, we did. So we just got to get rid of him anyway. So,
okay. But which made the movie somewhat comedic is their cavalier decision. It's just like saying, well, firing an employee or something. Well, you know what? It would if we did kill him on national television, definitely would help our ratings. So how can we pull this off?
Well, that's why they put Ruby on shooting Oswald on the TV. It helped their ratings. Sure. Of course, Ruby didn't shoot Oswald. That was all faked. Oswald was shot inside the ambulance there. But yeah, it was good for ratings.
Okay. And are you talking about Jacob Rubenstein?
Yes, the Jew, Jacob Rubenstein. So we can now blame the Jews for shooting Kennedy.
Sorry, I just had to throw that in there. So anyhow,
and Ruby also said that too. He said they're going to use this as a weapon against my people in America by blaming me for it. Ruby also said something to that effect. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, well, speaking of Jack Ruby, speaking of Patty Tchaikovsky, who is Jewish but was trained by the Jesuit, you had Lament, Sidney Lumet, who was Jewish but was also married to Gloria Vanderbilt. So who else was involved with the production? Well, one of the producers was Howard Gottfried,
Howard Gottfried.
Yes.
Gottfried. I think that's another Jewish name.
Yes.
Gottfried. Mm-hmm.
And you also,
Okay.
the film was edited by Alan Heim.
Heim. H-E-I-M or H-E-I-N?
H-E-I-M.
Like Michael. Yep. Heim is a Jewish name. Yeah, so it looked like they took all their foremost erudite, articulate Jewish writers and put them to work on this. And then they had primarily Roman Catholic actors do all the major portrayals.
Mm-hmm. Great move on their part, if I do say so.
Great move. That's the brilliance of the Jesuits.
Okay, so that reminds me of something that the late Jordan Maxwell said. The Jesuits have used Hollywood for well over a century, 120 years, however long, to let you know what they have done, what they are doing, and what they're going to do. So you could say that Network was basically a confession of sorts.
That's right. They were telling the truth. And it was Jordan Maxwell that told me that there's a certain sprocket in those projectors called the Knights of Malta sprocket. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah. The Knights of Malta sprocket is the most important sprocket in the projector, at least at that time.
Mm-hmm. So, you said you were dumbfounded when Bill's character mentioned basically by the mid-1970s, most Americans were, if not illiterate, were illiterate. That means they can read, but they choose not to.
Right. Illiterate, very good term, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's the truth because they don't read books. They didn't read books then. I didn't read books. Before I was saved, I never read a book. I had a friend, a Roman Catholic friend that I grew up with. His name was Lester Marston. He went to Salesians. He went to a Catholic school. But I was writing, he said, hey, Eric, let's go play basketball. I said, I got to write a book report. He says, he said, come over to my place. I have an Encyclopedia Master Plots. He said, what's that? He said, I have a master plot and all these literature books that have ever been written. Just come on over and we'll read it and we'll write up your book report and we'll be done. So I did. The teacher caught me though. Eric, did you write this? I said, well, I did write it. He says, where did you get this? Well, Miss Best, I got it from an encyclopedia of master plots. You've got an F for the day. But it was an interesting experience, I will tell you that.
Okay, so I realize, we have like 15 minutes-ish. Do you remember the songwriter Burt Bacharach?
Oh, of course. Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. He wrote that one.
Yes, and he also did, he wrote hundreds of songs. What the World Need Is Love, Sweet Love by Dionne Warwick. And he was like a virtuoso when it came to pop tunes. So Burt Freeman Bacharach lived from the 12th of May, 1928, and he just died on February the 8th of last week. So he
if you remember, if you just take this into consideration, usually musical composers, live long lives. Mm-hmm. Because they're expressing all these things, and the music is an expression, and they rejoice in it, and it's good for your health. So, music that you enjoy is good for your health. So, at least this here.
Okay, so he was okay. I don't mean to keep harping on this. This is like I need to come up with some new material, but he was of a German Jewish background. He was born in Kansas City, Missouri. Didn't know that. Now, one of his wives was Angie Dickinson. They were married from 1965 to 1980. So, yes, as Roman Catholic, well, at least one of his wives was Roman Catholic.
Angie Dickinson was Roman Catholic?
Correct. Policewoman.
I loved Angie Dickinson. I thought she was gorgeous, but just go ahead. In my TV watching days, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so did millions of other men.
Sure.
So, well, gee, if you're going to be successful, yeah, it's helpful to have a modicum of talent, but you have to be married to the right people.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Burt Bacharach and Angie Dickinson. Okay. So he's a Jew, and she is a what? She is a white Gentile German.
She's a Roman Catholic.
Yeah, Roman Catholic, and her racial makeup was what? Dickinson? Is it English or
I
Scottish?
guess.
Okay.
Yes. So, but one of
Yeah.
the things that Bacharach said when he was growing up in his neighborhood, even though he's Jewish, almost all of his friends were Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know any Protestants growing up.
Mhm.
All my friends were Roman Catholics or atheists.
Is there a difference?
No, there really isn't.
I'm sorry, I should.
Well, I was an atheist, so I went drinking with them, and we all got along fine, except they went to confession. I didn't. I said, what a waste of time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So something I just like to change things up somewhat. I meant to bring this up 2 years ago, and it seems as if that since the beginning of 2021 or so, we've all had all sorts of words introduced into our vocabulary. Well, they've been there for a long time, but they weren't used by the general public, such as myocarditis, pericarditis, D-dimer, thrombosis, embolism, and you basically had to. So, can you check the spelling on that? What do those mean? Well, okay, D-dimer is how you check for blood clots.
Mm-hmm.
Thrombosis is a blood clot, and embolism is a blood clot in your lungs. Myocarditis is basically the hardening of your inner heart wall. Pericarditis is the hardening of your outer heart wall. I believe I have that correct. So why am I throwing out all these words? 3 or 4 years ago, the general public were the United States, and imagine most of the world, had never even heard of these words. But now almost everybody knows what they mean, or at least they've heard of them. You have any idea why that is?
The TV, maybe?
I'm sorry?
The TV? The boob
Well,
tube?
yes, or on the radio, but I made reference to this NFL player, Damar Hamlin, who purportedly had a heart attack at the beginning of last month, even though he's supposed to be in great shape physically. As I said, whether he had one, who knows? But you've heard of cases all over the world of people in their teens, their 20s and 30s, who are developing issues with myocarditis, pericarditis, embolisms, and there's something that happened last couple of years. I have no idea what it is. That for some reason this has gone from being a non-issue to being a major one.
Could it possibly be the Jesuit?
Well, actually, that can't be because those, as we've said before, safe and effective.
That's right. Jesuit Fauci told us the truth. They were safe and effective. He wouldn't lie to us. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Were we talking about Howard Beale, or are we talking about the fictitious Howard Beale or Anthony Fauci?
Now, Howard Beale would tell more truth in 10 words than Fauci would ever utter in his entire life. So, yeah, it's got to be Fauci the liar.
Oh, okay. Yes. So you have these conditions that
Fauci couldn't be fired. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
He could not be fired. He's a member of senior executive service. There's some 7,000 of these traitors in the public service, senior executive service, and they can't be fired.
Mm-hmm.
President can't even fire them. So I find that intriguing. So sounds like representative government to me, huh? Sounds like a constitutional limited republic to me, does it, George?
Well, that's interesting because, he did retire, I guess. So I guess he can go work on his golf game or his suntan down in the Bahamas or whatever it is he's going to be doing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But similar thing happened here in California. All these so-called health officers who are now back in late 2019, early 2020, most of California hired its new health officers. Now, they purportedly were hired by the local board of supervisors, but they actually answered directly to the governor here in California. That would be Gavin Newsom. So the board of supervisors cannot fire them.
Board of Supervisors cannot fire the health officer.
Correct. Because as I said, they, in a quote, state of emergency, close quote, there's a little law saying they answer directly to the governor.
Mm-hmm. But there is no real civilian constitutional government in state of emergency.
Correct.
So
now,
that's why the governor becomes all powerful, which is what the Jesuits want.
Yes. Now, the official quote, COVID, close quote, emergency ends on the 28th of this month. It will have lasted almost 3 years. Now, the federal state of emergency for COVID ends on May the 11th. More than 3 years. Remember, Donald Trump declared a national emergency for COVID back on Friday, March the 13th, Friday the 13th, 2020.
Did Congress approve and confirm that?
Congress, what's that?
Yeah. Congress approved and confirmed it way back on March 9th, 1933 with the Emergency Banking Relief Act, where they approved and confirmed every proclamation of the president from March 4th, 1933 up into the present. So it was approved and confirmed in FDR's day. Go ahead.
What did George W. Bush? I won't repeat exactly what he said. The Constitution, that's just an executive piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's well spoken from a bonesman.
Well, and of course, his attorney general was Gonzalez. Was it Albert Gonzalez? He said, well, he was talking. A reporter asked Gonzalez about how the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay, these suspected terrorists, are being treated at Guantanamo Bay after 9/11. And he said, don't you know this is how they're being treated is a violation of the Geneva Convention? And he said, it is Alberto Gonzalez. That was his
Alberto, thank you very much.
He said, the Geneva Convention of War, how quaint.
How quaint. That little tyrant that he was, Alberto Gonzalez. Yeah.
Well, it's just like, I know we've talked about this before, but here's a little factoid. During the final phase of the Second 30 Years' War, aka World War II, German POWs were treated relatively well by the Allies, the British and the Americans. I said relatively well. However, after the war ended, their legal status changed from being POWs, prisoners of war, to being enemy combatants, because there was not a functioning government in Germany. Now I realize that's just a piece of trivia. So,
there was a functioning government, and it was overseen by that criminal. A book was sent to me about him, John J. McCloy, and he was the High Commissioner in Germany at the time. The name of the book is called The Chairman. And for you, whoever sent me the book, thank you very much, because it's a classic work on John J. McCloy called The Chairman. I think it's our writer is Bird. I think it's Bird. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me clarify. There was no functioning civilian government in
Correct.
At the time. Okay. So the millions of German POWs that were in Western hands, not Russian hands, that's a different subject, were under no legal. They were no longer given the legal protection of the Geneva Convention of War. Now, for what it's worth, on the other side, the American POWs and the British POWs and allies, for the most part, were treated relatively well by the Germans. Mm-hmm. Something like the survival rate for British and American POWs and German POW camp was something like over 99%. Now, granted, they weren't luxury accommodations, but they made sure they got the Red Cross packages. They make sure they got their mail and all that sort of stuff. But after the war, the German POWs who were in Western hands, as I said, they're simply at the mercy of their captors.
No, it was horrible. They killed 2 million of them. From 1945 to 47, thereabouts, killed 2 million of them, dying in their own excrement. It's a total disgrace. Of course, the Jesuits running the military government, using the awful and wicked Dirty Harry Truman, facilitated all that. Yeah. Go ahead. Where are we now? We dealt with all these different terms. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and by the way, just before I get my contact information, I do know somebody, a fellow named Vinny, who lives in Wisconsin. He knows a couple of people who might be able to help you. I can't guarantee anything.
Okay, well, what we're looking for, dear listener, is the host for 24/7 World Radio will not be able to host the radio station anymore, and so I need to find another host for the radio station. So if anybody has any ideas, appreciate it. This radio station, the host will cease to be able to host by the end of February. So appreciate any input there, and that we could be able to continue the station with somebody else hosting it. So I'll try to contact Benny. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yes, we can talk off air. So anyhow, sure I missed some topics. So theoretically, we may only be able to do this a couple more weeks.
February 28th, which is a Monday, is the last day. So maybe you'll be on with me that Monday, and we'll finalize some things, summarize some things, and then I'll have the 2022 audio ready to be offered for sale, and I'll just include the 2 months of January, February for 2023. But yeah, it'll be we'll be done then for this host, and we'll find another one, Lord willing.
Okay, I'm sure we can find some other format.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be the same format. It's just going to be another hosting company.
Okay, so if people have any, so shall I give my contact information?
Please do. Yes, George.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if people have any questions, comments, concerns, critique, yes, a fellow named Tim, yes, who the ex-prime minister is Jacinda Ardern. Thank you for that clarification. Of New Zealand. Okay, if people have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email me at georgewidger1969@gmail.com. If you'd like to send me a video, an article, whatever, or just say hello, please let me know where you're writing from. If there's a topic you'd like me to address or go over again, please do so, or just ask, and I'll do my best to accommodate you.
And your email address, brother?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I get George Widger 1969@gmail.com. GEORWIDGER 1969 at gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, George, I want to thank you for being on again today. It's this Monday is your time, the second hour, and you always bring intriguing information. And I want to thank you for telling me or directing me to watch that movie Network. It was really a classic. And it tells you exactly how the Jesuits run things, but they're not going to mention their name, of course. So thank you for that. So, Lord willing, we will be together next Monday.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, God bless. Talk to you soon.
Lord bless. Bye-bye. All right, Brother Eric John Phillips, thank you for tuning in today. My book, Vatican Assassins, Wounded in the House of My Friends. Please go to my website, vaticanassassins.org. And I have things there for your interest you can purchase. Also go to 247worldradio.com. I have all my broadcasts that are available. Each year is $100 per zip drive, and if you want 2 years, it's $150. I also have, you can sign up for Wellabate. I'm also going to be also listed GS Partners. It's something of a investment opportunity. You might want to check that out and see if it's for you. And I also have my classes, private citizenship, my advanced class, and my tax class. And I think you might be helped by that. I just taught my advanced class. I'm going to update a little bit. So it is to teach you how to use your status when you're the pre-March 9th, 1933 private citizen of the United States as a result of a filed declaration of status with 16 exhibits on a county and also on a federal level. So in reverting back to that status, we have certain protections that all the U.S. citizens do not, and I think you would really enjoy that course. It's a 3-day course. Sometimes it goes a little longer, but we need to have right status, especially in these days when martial law is right around the door, right around the corner. So you can get those things. I have books for sale. I have a special drive for sale on anti-gravity craft. It was written by a gentleman who was well aware of them, and he committed it to me to offer to you. And so I just want to encourage you to continue to do what the Lord would have you to do. And we need your prayers that we could be able to have another host for the station, and that we continue to expose the power of the Jesuits, what they're doing with their secret societies, and also at the same time show what the Lord's doing in furthering his counsel and saving his elect and getting the gospel to the ends of the earth. So, Brother Eric John Phelps, may the Lord bless you as you do his will according to his word today, the AV 1611 Reformation English Bible. Until Wednesday, Maranatha.